Okay, one of the things that you've got to absolutely have nailed when you're looking at your buy-sell agreements is business valuation. What is an appropriate and fair business valuation? And let me talk to you about theoretically what the appropriate business valuation is, and then we're going to go into very briefly, generally, a good rule of thumb for you. First and foremost, any two people sit and agree upon a price, and they come up with the same price, that's the appropriate price. Because what the IRS says and what just about anyone else says is that a willing buyer, willing seller who are independent from each other, if they come up with a price, that's the appropriate price for the business. So that's obviously the starting point in valuing this business. I have a shareholder, Johnny. Johnny, what do you think the business is worth? I think it's worth $1 million. Do you think so? Yes. Good, we agree, done, that's nice and easy. But what happens when we don't agree and we need some kind of outside thought on what a good business valuation is? Well, I'm going to share with you that when you're setting up a buy-sell agreement, if you're not in complete agreement with what the business valuation is, you want to set up a formula for figuring out what the business valuation is. The other option is to frankly go out to business appraisers and get it appraised. But then you have a problem. What if the appraiser was hired by me and not by my partner, and he doesn't trust that it was the right business valuation? Well, then I've got to get 3, and I have to take the average of those 3. And how much is that going to cost? Well, shoot, all of a sudden we are talking about tons of time, tons of expense, tons of complexity, and still an arguable business valuation. So the best way to handle this is to come up with a formulaic business valuation. And what I like is somewhere, depending on your business, of 3 to 5 times earnings. And what I say by earnings, I mean net operating profit. What in most business will be called EBITDA, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So 3 to 5 times earnings. That represents the cash flow that this business is able to generate on an annual basis. But in addition to that, we have some net assets, or what other people might refer to as net equity. Think about this net equity concept as your home. If you own a home that's worth $500,000 and you have a $250,000 mortgage, you have $250,000 of net equity in your home. So what we would be doing is if you were renting out your home, we would be paying some sort of 3 to 5 times earnings multiple plus, we would be paying for that equity because that equity represents cash or something that can be turned into cash in a reasonable period of time. And so what we've got here is a basic formulation of 1, 3 to 5 times earnings plus, number 2, net assets or net equity. And that formula is going to be applicable for nearly 70 to 90% of businesses out there. The only ones where it's not applicable is where there's a significant portion of intellectual property that might be needed to be added to it. And that's the third piece, is there any intellectual property? And we need to come up with some sort of valuation for that or valuation methodology. So for the most part, most businesses are going to fall into these 2 categories where you can use a formula, and for the rest of them, you're going to have a discussion around intangible assets or intellectual property, figure out what that's worth, and add that to the equation.